Well, let's move on now to Ghana, Olive, and there's this story in Ghana that's actually taking place right now.
Right, absolutely. Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo has described the delay by state actors responsible in Ghana's quest to remove the death penalty from the statute book as long overdue.
Well, Ghana is yet to actually ratify the second optional protocol to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, a subsidiary agreement to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, ICCPR, which aims to abolish the death penalty. Speaking to a delegation from Amnesty International Ghana at the Jubilee House in Accra on the 4th of November 2022 at a courtesy call, President Akufo-Addo responded directly to the proposal that the death penalty be abolished. Well, this very morning on Breakfast Central, we do have editor and political analyst Wilberforce Asare to actually shed more light on this. Straight up, we'll go to the questions. Wilberforce, thank you for joining us. Should the death penalty remain or should it be abolished?
So globally, there's been advocacy championed by Amnesty International and some United Nations bodies for the death penalty to be abolished from the statute books of various countries. And Ghana happens to be one of the countries that is signatory to several of these international agreements, particularly the ICCPR that you rightly referred to when you were doing your introduction as captured in the story that was written. And so to that extent, I believe that the death penalty, in terms of respecting the fundamental human rights, no matter what anybody has done, no matter the offense, it appeared to me that it will not be the right of another person to take the life of the other. So when someone has taken someone's life, it doesn't transcend into the one who is living also taking the life of that person who took another person's life, except to punish the person. So here in Ghana, if you read the story, you will get to know that even though the death penalty is in our statute books, the last time it was used was in 1995 under the presidency of former President Jerry Rawlings. Since 1995, a host of Ghanaians have been sentenced to death, but all that has happened to them is that they've been kept in solitary confinement and more like 7 life sentences in our prisons. And so if we haven't had the political will to execute people who have been sentenced to death, but are keeping them on death row, and for that matter, on life sentences, then there will be no reason why we should keep the law of death penalty on our statute book. So I am one of the people who agree that the death penalty should be expunged from the statute books of Ghana.
All right, seeing that Ghana is an abolitionist state, let's talk about the procedure for ensuring that the death penalty is removed from the statute books. Now, this conversation has been on for a few years with Amnesty International mounting pressure on the government to ensure that Ghana becomes completely abolitionist. But whilst the conversation has been going on, there have been reports that for this to happen, they will need about 40% of those eligible to vote to actually vote in a referendum. And in that referendum, 75% of these 40% must vote against the abolition or vote in favor of the abolition of death penalties. That's still the position. And how much progress have we made in this regard?
Well, so to the best of my understanding, when you come to Ghana, the death penalty is located in 2 acts of parliament. The first act is the Ghana Armed Forces Act, where that is Act 151, and then the Criminal and Other Offences Act, Act 29. Now, the provision in these 2 acts are such that in terms of the armed forces, there's a death penalty for any member of the armed forces who attempts to do specific things, including trying to overthrow a government. And then in terms of the Criminal and Other Offences Act, any person who is found guilty to have taken the life of another person, that person is sentenced to death. So it is the provision in these 2 acts that maintains the death penalty in our statute books here in Ghana. So if we want to remove it completely, what it will mean is that we will have to go to Parliament for Parliament to amend those provisions in the Ghana Armed Forces Act and also in the Criminal and Other Offences Act, Act 29 and Act 151 specifically. So that is the best of my understanding. They are not an entrenched, it's not in our constitution as an entrenched provision, but it is in two acts of parliament, which will just require a request to parliament to amend those specific provisions in the two acts that I have mentioned. So that is the understanding that I have as far as Ghana's situation is concerned. In some other countries, I understand that it is a provision in their constitution, and so it will require a referendum if it is an entrenched position and all that. But for our position here, the law is located in two acts of parliament, and to change it, we will just have to go to parliament and do an amendment.
All right. Wilberforce Cesare, thank you very much for joining us this morning. We'll certainly be following up with the updates as regards abolishing the death penalty in Ghana. Do enjoy the rest of your day.